Ladies and gentlemen, this is your final boarding call for the good ship SS Tomorrow.
Today on The Friendly Futurist, we are reaching for the stars. And welcome back, and joining us on board the bridge here on the good ship SS Tomorrow is a bona fide astrophysicist. It's J. Craig Wheeler. He's from the University of Texas in Austin, and he's got a book about the singularity, and he's looking at it from an objective science perspective. Everything from astrobiology right to which of our main planets or moons in the solar system could be an acceptable second home or potential. And the question, and you might notice the spaceship branding on my podcast, are we going to be destined to become a spacefaring species? Objectively, from a scientific point of view, not none of this science fiction mumbo jumbo. I know we've covered it a lot, but what's it like really in real life? This very interesting intellectual discussion, thought-provoking discussion is coming up after the break. And welcome back to another episode, and we've got a very special guest. I've never had an astrophysicist before, and we've got a very experienced one. He's over from the University of Texas, and his name is J. Craig Wheeler, and we're going to talk about all things, singularity and what's life going to be like coming up in the future. And Craig, welcome. And as all my guests, can you please give us a quick rundown and start wherever you want to start?
Sure. Well, I'm very delighted to be here. Always good to be down under, at least to visit in this remote way. Yeah, so I'm an astrophysicist. I'm an emeritus professor at the University of Texas at Austin. I got into this particular train of thought. I work on supernovae, so exploding stars, neutron stars, black holes, fun things like that. The really enjoyable career on the intellectual cutting edge of that kind of thing. At one point, I was asking myself and working with a colleague about, well, what happens to the Earth if a supernova goes off nearby? Radiation, particles, how far away would a supernova have to be to not be dangerous, or how nearby to be dangerous? And so I got involved in the subject of astrobiology through that connection. And that was just intellectually fascinating. Talked to biologists and geologists and chemists and people thinking about the origin of life and all sorts of related things like that. It was great fun. And somewhere in that chain of things, this is back in the early 2000s, I read a statement by a preacher, and I don't remember now who. I don't remember where I read it, unfortunately. But this learned person said that he believed in evolution, that there was this gradual Darwinian natural selection that guided things. But it was clear to him that Homo sapiens was the peak. There was no place to go from here. And I thought, well, I don't think that's my worldview. I'd never really asked the question before, but I think in the back of my mind, I thought, biology, stuff happens, it keeps happening. And I just sort of thought, I'm not sure that's right. And so I had a chance to talk to some students in a situation where a professor will pick a book and incoming freshmen at the University of Texas will read it, and then we have a discussion session the day before classes start. That way of getting the students comfortable with the enormous state university that we run here. And so I picked Darwin, and we read Darwin and talked about it, and I raised this question of the statement that the preacher had made. And I don't remember exactly what we said about that, but the thing that was a revelation to me was how much the students, there were like a dozen of them, wasn't a lot, but a large significant fraction of them understood that we were already proceeding beyond Darwin. we knew enough about DNA and genetics and all that kind of stuff that we were likely to change our own evolution and leave Darwin in the dust. And that was just such an amazing thought to me. I pondered that and then turned that into a course and taught that for a while. And from the course notes, I turned it into the book that I am now discussing with folks like you and people in your audience. So it started, the preacher was that pebble that started the avalanche. And here we are.
Yeah, interesting. I guess we're still not the full. I don't think that's a very interesting thought, Craig. I mean, guess that from a evolutionary perspective, probably not are the final end state. Probably is there even likely to be a final end state, or will just keep evolving?
Well, that's just my sense of it. I can't prove that, of course. It's just that I think biology happens and that natural selection happens. And I think we will probably artificially affect our evolution.
Yeah.
So I think we are destined to change.
Absolutely. And I guess, too, the other elephant in the room is artificial intelligence, or the rise of machines, the singularity, so to speak, because, Ray Kurzweil did predict it to happen in 2045, but I think since then it's been predicted to be brought forward a few years. What's your take on the singularity as a concept?
Yeah, well, just to be clear, I mean, I presume everybody knows this, but just to be clear, because there's mathematical definitions of singularity, dividing by zero and getting infinity.
Yeah.
This is a cultural singularity when computers get more competent than human beings in every human enterprise, and then they race ahead at the speed of light rather than the speed of biology that we prod along. So Kurzweil argued that this transition would occur about 2045. I frankly don't think anybody knows even whether, never mind when it's going to happen, to be honest. But Kurzweil has a new book, and he is sticking with that prediction he made in 2005. There are arguments it could happen even faster, depending on how fast OpenAI is developing things, and many, many, many other companies working very hard on related topics. So I think we need to be aware of these changes and prepared to adjust to them, or even guide them and direct them in some way so that our own technology doesn't bulldoze us.
Humanity in control of this seemed like an increasing amount of technology.
There's the major worry that people talk about, and again, this is so complicated, I don't think anybody really knows, question of whether AI will become conscious and self-aware. And it may, and I think I can imagine steps by which that would happen. AI merging with robots and those robots being aware of their surroundings and adjusting to it. And that's sort of the description of what a conscious being does. So I can imagine, I mean, it certainly hasn't happened yet. There's no conscious machines on the planet, but people are working very hard at that. There's a program here at the University of Texas at Austin in robotics where they are trying to do embodied AI so that you get the AI in this robot environment and let it go out and explore. And I think that's an inevitable step. And whether that leads to consciousness or not, I don't know, but it might. And so I think we need to be aware of that and thinking about it. I do think that AI can be disruptive even without that transition to consciousness. It's just already we can feel it coming into our everyday life. And once ChatGPT came along, and then all the big companies are competing to do that kind of thing, and then sort of forcing it on us in some way. I mean, you can't log into Chrome anymore, which I just did to talk to you, without suggestions that, well, use the AI or something, or LinkedIn says that. Draft a comment, use the AI. It's just coming at us in all sorts of quarters. So I think there's going to be lots of changes driven by AI, even if it's not conscious. It's going to be a very, capabilities grow exponentially, happen. My kind of concern, I don't want to call it a fear because I'm not trying to hype all this stuff. Concern that as it grows exponentially, it'll start changing things faster than individuals or our society can adapt. We've always had to adapt to technology. It's a self-feedback thing. The more you know, the more you can do, and off it goes. But I think there could be a qualitative difference in human existence when things start changing fast, just literally faster than we can adapt, either as individuals or a society. Not decades, but weeks.
Yeah.
And you can kind of sense that coming. So, yeah, I think AI is something we really need to cope with, whether it becomes conscious or not.
Yeah.
And if it does, Katie, bar the door. Then there's a whole
Yeah.
thing.
Well, actually, I do tell my students myself that, expecting the next 10 years, we might see a whole decade's worth of change in literally a year. And yeah, that's. I also like to think too of there wasn't that coffee test. If a machine can choose your house at random, go into the kitchen, make itself a cup of coffee, we know if we've reached, AGI. So it's, yeah.
We're not that far from a machine that can make itself a cup of coffee if it wants one. It may want a cup of machine oil or something instead.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not here yet, but boy, it could happen very fast.
Is there any other ethical considerations in the future of AI/human collaboration?
Well, do you mean human ethics or AI ethics?
Well, ethics in AI. Yeah.
No, let me come back to that, but to take it seriously, I don't think it's as simple as arranging for AI to obey the Asimov's 3 laws of robotics. I think it's going to be much more complicated than that. But we do need to keep AI aligned with human values and doing things that are good for society, have it free of bias. We know the original AIs and chat robots of various kinds were trained on biased data and they became biased. There are all sorts of famous stories about that. There are issues like autonomous vehicles. Do you design those and engineer them in some way to protect the driver of that vehicle or protect the pedestrians on the street if it comes to an ethical choice between who do you kill, who do you save? That's not a matter of just programming it in with and or statements. I don't know quite how that will do. We train AV with human ethical principles of some way, but those then vary with cultures and it's complicated. Autonomous weapons. Do we develop weapons that on their own devices can kill? And that technology is clearly we're right on the border of that. And right now it's being kind of restrained, but war breaks out of some kind, then could be quite different.
Yeah.
To be a little serious about my facetious comment before, suppose we do develop an AI that becomes conscious, then we have invented a conscious entity and trapped it in this box full of silicon chips. And is that an ethical thing to do to this conscious entity? There are people beginning to ask questions like that. And now that I've seen that, I'm one of them. I mean, I don't know. I don't think that's going to stop us from doing it, but it is a consideration of whether this thing wakes up and says, damn, I'm in a box. I want to get out of here somehow. But if it's in a robot that can explore around and it just thinks my body is my body and I see things and I react to the environment, then maybe it's much like you and I. I don't know. But there could be a question of the ethics of bringing an AI alive that maybe not the first priority, but something in this sweep of things that we're thinking about ought to be contemplated, I think.
Yeah, or sometimes I think it's best just to leave Pandora's box unlocked.
It is. It is. I think there can be good things come out of Pandora's box, but there can be a lot of things come out of Pandora's
box. Yeah. So how can ordinary citizens influence the development of technology?
Well, I think there's kind of 2 steps. I mean, having written this book, I wish I had more wisdom to bring to that, but I do have a couple of things to say about it. One is, I think it's very important to just be aware of all the rapid technological changes that are happening around us. In my class, I asked students to bring in examples of technological change, and they would bring in things and I would bring in things and I would collect them. I'm still trying to collect them on my website to sort of map this exponential growth of technology that we're involved in now. And I think part of the psychology is you can go around your everyday life and not really be aware of all these changes going on, AI, the biological things. But once you start paying attention, then the way human consciousness works, you start noticing even more. It's like, somebody says, well, have you seen a Tesla? I'm seeing a Tesla. And then you start looking. Oh, yeah, there's one. There's one of those Cybertrucks. Oh, yeah, there's another one. It's all painted in some funny color. Once you cross that threshold of being aware, that will grow on you as well. And I think that's a very important thing to do. And in some sense, the reason I wrote the book is to take a small step in helping people learn how to be aware of these things and look out for them on their own. And the other thing then that I think while we still live in a democratic society, basically here, there in Australia, around the world, that we need to vote. We need to pick representatives who are responsible and aware of these issues, and then hold their feet to the fire to do something about them, to put guardrails in place, to do whatever needs to be done to advance the technology, but not let it steamroller us. And I think the election that we just had here, I kind of understand this. You're trying to win the most powerful office on the planet, but the lack of discussion of these kind of issues that I think are imminently approaching and probably more important than all the issues that were talked about in the election, if I could go to that extreme. The lack of discussion of that was regrettable, understandable, but regrettable.
Yeah,
there'll be more elections. You're going to have them. We're going to have them. England's going to have them. Germany's going to have them. Everybody's going to have elections, and you want to try to use the process of the democratic process and voting to get responsible people in charge.
Yeah, well, it's a very interesting debate down here at the moment, and we're talking about lacking guardrails of technology. We're proposing to be the first, nation on earth to put age restrictions in for social media. So, and that really yeah,
right.
So ban under 16s from using like TikTok and Facebook and Instagram, basically. And
sure,
I think we should be learning our lessons from the Web 2 era.
I personally feel there ought to be some restrictions on the social media, but there are counter arguments, free speech and all those kind of things. And if you put too many regulations on the technologists, then you slow down the advance of the technology, and you don't want to do that too much. I don't want to put it in, us versus China sort of thing, but there is that geopolitical tension on the planet right now. That's a real thing. You can't ignore that. But it's complicated how you do this. This is why you need people being aware and thinking about it and taking some steps to do something about it, whatever those are. And again, then I'm a little embarrassed. I don't have anything more specific to say about that. But the issues are so complicated. It is not a black and white, let's do this or do that. That's not what it is. It's much more nuanced than that.
Yeah. I almost think like it's like driving a car. You got foot on the gas, you accelerate, but also foot on the brake. You can't drive both. You can't drive one without the other.
Yeah. And this is not just an accelerator and a brake. Yeah. It's much harder than that. But it's still, that's
the clutch and the stick shift,
Which pedal do we push? That's a good place to start. And then apply that to all sorts of individual aspects of this issue.
Now, Craig, I want you to put your astronomer hat on and give me an answer, because I know this podcast is about the future and my branding has a rocket ship. I know there's a lot of talk about Mars, but somehow I think Mars is the wrong planet, which is likely, well, if there's any, would be a likely second home or a good place to explore in our immediate solar system.
I do think Mars is most people's first choice, and for reasonable reasons. It may have water. Maybe we can constitute an atmosphere or bring our own atmosphere. We know Mercury won't work. Venus is too hot. There are lots of reasons why other things won't. But there might be some moons that are habitable once we learn more about the solar system. So I think we might be surprised at the number of habitable environments. Or we build big honking space stations out there and live in them. There's all sorts of things that might happen.
Interesting. And are we destined to become a spacefaring species, or is that just too hard, too far in the future?
So it's very hard to predict that in the long run. So let me take two shots at that. Yes, I think so. I think we will become a spacefaring civilization, society, what do we want to call it? Species is the appropriate word. I think we'll go there because it's there. Same reason we climb mountains. We climb them because they're there. Space is there. We're going to go into it. There may be profit to be had, resources and asteroids and the moon and wherever else. We may exhaust the resources on our planet and need resources elsewhere. So for all of those reasons, again, complex and dependent on cultures and individuals, I can't see how we will not do that. On the other hand, if we don't figure out how to go faster than the speed of light, we're not going to go very far. We can go light years away. We could go 100 light years away. We could go 1,000 light years away in 1,000 years from now. But that's still relatively nearby the solar neighborhood.
Yeah.
So it will depend on these science fiction tricks, wormholes or hyperspace, all that kind of stuff, which is not real science now at all. And in fact, the speed of light is a really hard limit as far as we know right now. So yes, I think we'll be spacefaring, but I think we will be restricted to rather near this solar system for maybe forever.
Yeah, stuck to the neighborhood, so to speak. Now, is there anything I didn't ask but should?
Well, I guess I would make a point that I've kind of alluded to before of where things are headed. So we talked about spacefaring and we talked about technology and all that. One thing that I am pretty confident of, and have said this in the book, is that 1 million years from now, Homo sapiens won't exist. And there could be 3 reasons for that. One we started off talking about is how I got into this game, Darwin, evolution or not. But there were no Homo sapiens on this planet 1 million years ago. There weren't any a few 100,000 years ago. We're a recent phenomenon. So 1 million years is a drop in the bucket to a geologist or an astronomer. But in that time scale, everything I know about the way the world works says that Homo sapiens are not going to be here anymore. They will have, even by slow Darwinian natural selection, adapting to living in space, adapting to climate change. I don't know. Well, changes. I think it may happen faster than that because we may change our own evolution, or we could kill ourselves with nukes. Let's not go there with it. But I think that I'm pretty confident in that prediction that Homo sapiens, as we know you and me right now, will not exist 1 million years from now. People can chew on that as they will. So I think it's urgent to understand these rapid technological changes now so we can guide the technology that will shape our lives. I think that's the mission I'm trying to sell right now in getting people to think about these things.
Absolutely. It's a great thing to wrap up here, Craig. Before we go, where else can we find you? And more importantly, where can we find your book?
Yeah, well, you can find the book now as of last Tuesday. I'm not sure about Australia. Certainly they've started in this country, in England, I think. But I'm a big fan of independent bookstores. And so I encourage people to look at their local bookstore. My publisher, Prometheus Books, has it available. It's available on Amazon. It's available on Barnes & Noble. I think it's available on Walmart. Do you have Walmarts in Australia?
We don't.
Well, maybe some analog of that. Anyway, pretty broadly is the answer to that.
Yeah.
And then I've got a couple of websites. Is it worth tediously rattling off a website address?
Go, feel free.
They're not all that complicated. So one of them is my own personal website about my writing. So it's J. Craig Wheeler, all one word, slurred together, .ag-sites. It's on the Authors Guild website, agsites.net. And so that will get you to my writing thing. And then prometheusbooks.com will certainly take you to the book, which is called The Path to Singularity, which I'm not sure we'd used that phrase before. But, how did we get here? What's happening now and what might happen in the future is what the book is about.
And this podcast is all about the future. Craig, it was a pleasure chatting to you this morning. Thanks very much for joining us.
Absolutely. Dave really enjoyed the conversation.
And thank you, Craig, for his input. Coming up next time on The Friendly Futurist, why your business might need a chief AI officer. That's coming up next on The Friendly Futurist. The Friendly Futurist is a podcast West production that's produced and edited by me, Dave Monk. If you love this show, please give us a 5-star review on your favourite platform. That way it can help us grow. And remember, friends, stay curious and the future is user-friendly.
Another Podcasts West production.
This podcast is just for educational purposes and it's not financial advice. I'm not a financial planner or advisor. Please do your homework and seek professional help before you take on any adventures.